episode.
Go ahead.
All right, we're going to start today's episode with a neck stretch. You're going to take your hand, you're going to stick it behind your back, you're going to grab it with your other hand, and you're going to set your shoulder, and you're going to just lean away. This is brought to you by my inability to move my head like Meaghan in the last episode.
If you would like to add a slight tilt towards the sky.
That also,
I
you
like
tilt
that.
any direction you want, wherever you feel
Make
it.
it-
But
yeah, that's true.
other side. All right, here we go. Switch
There we go.
over. This is how you start a podcast, ladies and gentlemen.
And if
Look
you're
at that.
just
Do you see the
listening to
difference?
this,
Do you see the range of motion difference?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, it's huge. It's
Mostly because if I ever
ridiculous.
give this to clients, they always kind of freak out. And I have to show just this. Especially with like some of my flexibility. People are like, they're like, so I don't do that. Yeah.
So,
Anywho, welcome.
that is how you start a podcast about
That
people
is.
with ADHD and fitness.
Yeah! You should really do that. You
Cue
should
the
try.
music.
Okay. And if you haven't guessed, you're on the Neurodiverse Fitness Podcast. Okay, I'm Meaghan. I'm a personal
I'm
trainer.
Ryan.
He's also a personal trainer.
I am.
I'm a dancer. Okay, so today we are talking about our brains and nutrition.
We're talking about your brain on nutrition.
Nutrition. Or not on nutrition.
Or not on.
which
For most people, not on nutrition.
most people, yes.
Yep.
Actually, me about an hour ago before this podcast, as my brain was giving me a headache because I did not have food.
And why is this an important topic, Meaghan?
Because what we learned before this podcast started that we're going to talk about is that your brain needs nutrients and it takes a lot of energy to work. It's a muscle. It's like a whole muscle that like controls your nervous system. So
Actually, here, keep talking. I want to look something up real quick. I want
you
to get
gonna
the actual breakdown. I want to get the actual breakdown of which organs in your body use the most energy.
so your brain uses a lot of energy. And if you don't supply it with nutrients in order to provide that energy, it tends to just not be happy. But I also think that for a lot of people, it shows up in interesting ways that doesn't make you think about the brain being the cause of it. I had a theory earlier that
Mm-hmm.
I eat meat in order to not get a headache. And so I was like kind of onto something. I don't know if it's necessarily meat per se, but it's definitely protein.
So, according to Gemini, the
Yeah.
brain is the most energy-consuming organ in the human body. Despite making up only 2% of its weight, it accounts for approximately 20% of the body's total energy expenditure at rest. Now, real quick, we're going to look at... Now, remember, let's just do quick math. You're in charge of math in this case. If you
I
have
have
to eat, we'll say 2,000 calories a day. That's not true for
Mhm.
everybody. In fact, if you have a desk job, it's probably not true for you. If you're supposed to eat 2,000 calories a day, what's 20% of 2,000 calories a day?
Of 2,000, 20%. 400? 40?
Yep. And so 400. So real quick, do the math on this. How many miles do you need to run at 3 miles an hour to burn 400 calories?
Oh my God, we're back in school again. Okay. Can we just, 400 calories.
400
So
calories.
I know that if I do when I was doing CrossFit, I remember looking at my calories then. I would feel like a whole CrossFit workout is like 400 calories.
Right.
Maybe
a
a
whole
little bit
CrossFit workout is 400 calories. So
little bit under.
just thinking all day, just breathing, letting your heart beat, and managing to be conscious. That's it.
Is the same as a
Requires as
CrossFit.
much energy as a CrossFit workout. Just for your brain. Not for any other part of your body. Just for your brain.
That's absolutely wild, actually.
Right. Most people don't understand this, and this is one of the reasons that nutrient density is more important than caloric composition.
Say
I'm
that
gonna
again,
say that
please.
one more time.
Please.
Nutrient density is more important than caloric composition. So if you're a person that would like to maintain a healthy weight, you would prefer to go in the direction of nutritional density over caloric density.
So what we're saying here is that if you have heard that a calorie is just a calorie, that's where this is kind of the flip side of that argument. Just getting when they're telling you that you need to be in a caloric deficit in order to gain or to lose weight, that has some asterisks that come along with it, is what essentially we're saying.
Of them.
Like a lot.
But it is true. You're not going to lose weight if you're not in a caloric deficit. But if your caloric deficit's too large, your metabolism will slow down.
Yes. Like
and you can't out-exercise a bad diet.
That's accurate. One time I had a client who she just moved to a new city. Okay. Didn't know anybody in the city. She was taking 5 Zumba classes a week. She was eating 1,200 calories a day, and she was literally stressed out of her mind.
Yeah, because her body literally believed she was going to die.
Yeah. So maybe this is a good time to talk about basal metabolic rate.
Okay. So, we're already off the... Just so you guys know, we make itineraries for every single one of these, and then we subsequently throw them out the window the second we start filming. I just want you to know that. We're already totally off track. So, basal metabolic rate. Basal metabolic rate works like this. There's a certain amount of calories that is required for you to not die. Basically, so that your body can repair itself and you are capable of maintaining all your basic functions. Hilariously, since the brain is one of the most calorically consumptive organs in your body, if your caloric intake is consistently low, or worse than that, your nutritional intake is consistently low, the first thing your body will do is start to shut down systems it doesn't need. And the reality is, you don't need to be able to write poetry in order to survive. So cognitive functions, higher order cognitive functions in stressful scenarios, starvation, which by the way, if you're on a diet, your body doesn't know the difference between starving in the Sahara and eating Jenny Craig. It has no it does not know the difference. So stress is stress, starvation is starvation. It doesn't matter how you cut it. It just matters how long the duration goes on for. So if you are, let's take this instance with this person, eating 1,200 calories, but let's say burning 1,000 calories more than that a day, right? 22. It would be reasonable to say if you were taking a bunch of Zumba classes, you were eating 1,200 calories, you could be in a 1,000 calorie deficit. That's reasonable. So if you're in a 1,000 calorie deficit for a consistent period of time, your hormones get all screwed up. Your leptin levels go nuts. Your insulin levels stay very, very low unless you're eating mostly sugar. Again, what you eat. So there's calories, and then there's what the stuff does to your hormones. And those are different things. So your body is essentially going to start to shut down functions. For example, if you are a person that feels chronically tired and always hungry, it is possible that you are not getting enough protein or vitamins or something that's not carbs in your diet. I have noticed that the vast majority of people eat very carb heavy, and they eat low nutrient density and low fiber density, and they eat a lot less protein than they probably should. That's why one of the most basic things that I bring to every person I work with nutritionally is, are you getting enough protein? Are you getting enough fiber? Are you drinking enough water? And where is it all coming from?
Yes.
Those are the first 4 things I'll work on with a client for 2 to 3 months before we even get into anything else, because you'd be amazed at how many problems sort themselves out if those things become priorities.
That is 100%. And I think that a lot of times when you're working with somebody on nutrition, understanding of what that is that you have to cut immediately, and cutting is the first thing that happens, and it's not. And usually the conversation, same thing, is that what does your protein intake look like? Because more often than not, we have to add a lot more things before we take anything away.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the thing, is you can't just take and take and take. The body doesn't, and anyway. But the long story short about this is that when we talk about people with neurodiversity, statistically proven, time and time again, we're weird about food. We're just weird about food. I started learning about martial arts, meditation, and fitness early in my life because I would have anxiety attacks. One of the most important things that I learned was that my anxiety attacks were linked to my diet, and that what I was having was wild blood sugar fluctuations. That's why I don't really eat wheat or sugars, because I noticed that they highly affect my blood sugar, like my sense of blood sugar. And what goes along with that is often an extreme feeling of anxiety or discomfort when I go Like if I have like waffles, let's just use the example of I'm going to have waffles and syrup on a Sunday.
Not
if I
Kodak.
just have that for breakfast, within 3 hours, I'm going to be an absolute nutcase. And I know that. So I don't eat that stuff.
Yeah.
But I am neurodiverse. So I know that low GI diet for me, avoiding wheat and avoiding sugar are absolute. Those are 90 to 95% of the time I adhere to those.
Yeah. And looking back at that client, now that you bring that up, I do think there's a trend in people who are neurodivergent, at least ADHD, to take on a lot of things all at once, wild, all at once. And
I don't do that.
I don't have any extreme. And then let it drop when it comes to like, okay, so move to a new city, start working out all the time, doing the doing part tends to take over, and the thinking and pulling back and understanding what's going on seems to be a little bit lower. And I think that when it comes to eating, if you function that way, like that can lead to a lot of different ways, like patterns of eating. And I think, okay, so when I was younger, I did keto. I had a good old keto phase. And I think that is exactly why, now that I'm thinking about it, is that like my neurodivergency that was like, yeah, okay, if I just cut out every single carb, it's going to be great. And like go full extreme. And then you like fully crash also. But yeah.
Yeah, and so the idea here is really like when we look at people that have neurodiversity, and we're talking like across the spectrum, not all the issues are the same. Like for example, people with ADHD forget to eat. This is a super common thing. We're not very structured eaters. Learned for like, and I disciplined myself for years. I've told you this story about the first time I ever counted calories. And by the way, to all of you viewers out there, yes, I'm this old. The beard gives it away. And so at that time, I used to walk around with a little notebook in my back pocket, in one back pocket, and in the other back pocket, I had a little book of calorie counters. It gave you the calorie content of most things, not products, but like chicken, celery, like whatever. You had to thumb through it. You had to find your thing in the index. And then you had to go to your other little book and write down what you were eating and the calories. And at the end of the day, you would add them all up. So I would do this manually because at the time, there was no phone for this. So.
Wait, where'd you get this book?
At the bookstore. There used to be these things called bookstores.
Oh my God, don't even. I love bookstores. I go to bookstores all the time.
Yeah, the one Barnes and Noble in your neighborhood. Like, they used to be everywhere.
There's a lot of bookstores in Detroit. Excuse you, there's a lot of bookstores. They have a book and wine store actually that's all about. Actually, you might actually like that place on a tangent, but because it's all about like food books. Okay.
I'm a big fan of John R. King's books.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair. That's great.
That place is my jam. Anyway,
I haven't been there in a while. Okay.
Go.
I've been a while. Not been before, but just not in a while.
Yeah.
I should.
So the point is that when you start that way,
yeah, and then you
get really good at estimating. You get really good at estimating.
I mean, even sorry, if you do like a calorie counter on your phone, like an app, you still get good at it because
you get really good at estimating.
You look at it.
And like the first book I ever read on nutrition was called Body for Life, and Body for Life, everybody's doing Body for Life today. Like we're all doing it now. At the time, it was a New York Times bestseller. And somebody was like, yeah, somebody just took a bodybuilder like diet and basically packaged it so people could learn to do it. And it was a combination of strength training. And the rule was you had to eat 3 to 6 times a day. You had to eat a portion of protein, a portion of carbohydrates, and a portion of vegetables. And you did this for every meal. And the way they wanted you to gauge it was a portion of meat was the size of your palm, like thickness and roughly the size of your palm. A portion of carbs was the size of your fist. And the one that I've come up with is a portion of vegetables is the size of both of your hands.
You like this better?
This is the one that I tend to do. Yeah.
You don't do fist also? You think it should be more?
It's because people will never hit their fiber numbers. Remember, you're supposed to eat like 30 grams of fiber a day. You will never hit 30 grams of fiber a day eating 3 to 6 of these. It's got to be like this. And so all
my clients, do you hear that? I need you to double it.
Double it. It should be half your plate. It should be half your plate.
I'll take half your plate, yeah.
Half your plate. And then after that, I went and did one called Cheat to Lose, and Cheat to Lose was the winner
I've heard of that.
one of the Body for Life competitions. And that's where you start learning about insulin control, leptin control, all those things. And again, this was all back in, like, for me, like 2004 through 2008.
Yeah.
Like,
Can you explain a little bit GI for people who are not familiar with that?
yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, so GI means glycemic index. It was originally a technology designed for diabetics. By the way, everything we're doing in the fitness industry was originally a medical technology that we have stolen to optimize bodies. Take a person that's deficient in something, like producing insulin. They study it because they want to save lives. Then people like us come along, read the same research, and go, I could use that for X.
Yep.
And so
That's the same thing with the keto diet too, actually. I believe it was
keto diet's a low inflammation diet.
right. Was it just designed for people with autism? Is that right?
I don't know about that. I know that it hugely helps if you have autoimmune diseases.
Autoimmune. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, autoimmune diseases are highly influenced by inflammation, and the keto diet is a low inflammation diet. There was a woman that was originally a CNN anchor, and then she got sick with an autoimmune disease, and she went on to do like a whole series on low inflammation and low histamine diets, and she actually passed away of cancer about 3 years ago, and I just can't think of her name right now. But yeah, like that's a really good example of, if you're ever in the chronic illness communities, or if you're in like inflammation-based illness communities, autoimmune disease communities, you're going to notice that low inflammation is king. And low inflammation, by the way, is a little different for everybody. Different factors play in for different people. Like, for example, I know somebody that has gout and has smaller kidneys, and they have a hard time eating high degrees of protein. They can't eat certain beans or legumes. So like their diet's going to look distinctly different than somebody that, for example, has been battling cancer for 10 years.
Yes.
They both need to be low inflammation, but those diets are not going to look identical.
And then also, I have found that even within some of those like autoimmune disease, the diets will look different for the person. Some people respond, as you just mentioned, really well to meat, and then other people's bodies respond pretty terrible to meat, and they go pretty heavy vegetarian, vegan route.
There's actually a tick-borne illness that comes from it's like the Rocky Mountain something tick, that if you get it, it makes you allergic to red meat.
Wow.
There is a tick-borne illness that will make you allergic to red meat. So this is why universal diets don't work. They just don't work because bodies aren't universal. So, and with neurodiversity, like for example, I am the type of person that I rely on staples. I make a couple of basic things, and I pretty much 60 to 80% of the time I'm eating the same stuff until I change what that stuff is. Where my partner, for example, is the type of person, if you feed her the same thing 3 days in a row, she won't eat it for like a month.
My partner is probably similar to that.
Yeah.
She'll eat it once.
You gotta break it up.
And she's like, I had that yesterday. I don't want that.
Right.
Yep. I can usually do 3 days in a row and I'll be fine.
Yeah, and for me, I'm like, I made a pot of beans and rice, doo-dah, and that's just the way I work. So it depends on, because for me, I will wind up not eating. So I don't care what I eat, as long as it falls within my nutritional guidelines and it suits my needs given the conditions. And since I tend to be somewhat nomadic, conditions change all the time. So, it just depends. But you got to rely on routine as a neurally diverse person. You need to have strategies you've developed. Like, I help clients develop like a checklist of stuff I can get on the go.
Yes.
Like, that's a really common one. And so there's what I can eat, and then it's making it simpler. It's what I like to call the value menu way of thinking. The idea McDonald's had with a value menu, if you remember this time period, was instead of walking up to the cash register and going like this at the menu, I'll have a burger and a fry and a medium drink. You walk up and you go, I want a number 2. And like the amount of time that saved them as a company was massive. So the more volume they could fulfill. Well, for us, it's about cognitive load. Can I lower my cognitive load? I know that when I'm at home, I eat this for breakfast. I know that when I'm running late, I eat this for breakfast. I know that when I'm out, I can eat this for breakfast. and I just look for those things and I don't think about anything else. I
Yes.
just do that.
One of the most helpful things that you've taught me about nutrition and helping people coach them through it is having different options. So like, what's your option A, what's your option B, and what's your option C? So what that means is that you're not going to be your best self all the time, organized, high energy, ready to go, meal prep, did all the things. It's not going to happen. So what does that look like when you do that? Because you will have energy for that at some points. And then what is the option B? If you know that you did not get to that, you have a backup, and then you need a backup because you do. And that on the go situation has been a reoccurring topic that comes up with clients over and over and over again.
People say, well, I travel. Yeah,
Yes.
no, I get it. I travel too.
Yes.
But the thing that I always tell people is, like, my backup is go to supermarkets. Don't go to restaurants. Just go to the supermarket. You are better off. I kid you not. I just found I was in a hurry and I needed something, so I very quickly grabbed a Healthy Choice frozen meal. Okay. And it had 20 grams of protein. It was about 300 calories. The bowl was paper. It wasn't those black plastic bowls.
That's nice. Yeah.
It was like riced cauliflower, beans, chicken. It was mostly vegetables and protein. And I scanned through it. And of course, it had a couple of the basic additives that you would expect out of a processed food. But all in all, for $3 in a pinch, it was the right choice.
Yes. And I think that is the most important part is, given your situation, can you make choices that are long-term going to be healthy? I've had a lot of clients who also travel, and people go out in the world. They don't just stay at home all the time, for the most part. Yeah.
Well, and I always, you've heard me say this 1,000 times, but I say it to people all the time, there's no rules to food. There's no rules to food. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah. And I think that even when people think about meal prep, they think about, okay, I need to plan all my meals for the week. I need to have it all packaged up, all nice and neat. And the reality is that if you cut a few vegetables at the beginning of the week so you have them ready to cook with later, that is part of meal prepping. If you even just cook your meats at the beginning of the week, if you just do a piece of it that makes it easier for you later, that's going to set you up.
One of the ones that I get in my family for Christmas, I bought everybody one of those. It's a box that's basically a mandolin on top with like a push dicer in the middle that you slam it down and it knocks things through it. And what I tell people is, I tell them, just Chipotle your fridge. That's what I tell people. So what you do is you get a bunch of little containers, you take this little slam box, and you just cut a bunch of vegetables. You just cut a bunch. You don't need to know what you're going to make. You don't need to know.
Don't.
Just cut a bunch of vegetables, throw them in the fridge. And then when it comes time to eat, your level of resistance is super low. But because the level of resistance is super low, your level of creativity gets to be really high.
Yeah. And as neurodiverse people, we love that shit.
Yeah, that's great.
Great. Also, it does, to your point about cognitive load that you were talking about earlier, that takes down the cognitive load. One, in the process of cutting, you're not planning ahead, you're not trying to do all this extra thinking and all that stuff. Just cut the vegetables, put them there, and when it's time to eat, your body usually will tell you what you want to eat and what you want to make, which is, I guess, a whole nother topic.
If you ask me, we live in a society that is plagued with excess. The only thing we don't have is rest. So you have to understand that, for the vast majority of people, what they actually need is a filtered option. They don't need more to think about. People don't need more to think about. They need less to think about, and they need to be able to trust what they're doing. And we live in a world today where every time you open up the internet, you get conflicting information. Because, and since, all of social media is ran on hyperbole, it's important to be like, the reason that I will never eat anything red ever again. And you're like, well, I guess I gotta know why you're never eating anything red ever again.
I love when people are explaining to me their nutrition, because this happens often, just randomly. I'm not sure if that happens to you, but yeah, you do. Okay. So then, and the first thing that they start with is I don't eat any red meat. And I'm like, I just feel like that was a thumbs up in case I ever make this an audio thing. So I think that a lot of people think that red meat is like is evil. It's just terrible. It's like there's actually nutrients in there that you can eat if you don't eat it every single day.
Yeah, I hate to break it to you, but you need iron. Listen, last I checked, food isn't bad. Last I checked, we literally developed civilization so that it would be easier to get it. And yet somehow we've made it harder to get nutritionally dense food.
Accurate.
And so this is back to the original point, is when it comes to people that have ADHD and other neurodiversities, what you eat interacts with your nervous system. And so our nervous systems are a little bit different. So our eating habits tend to be a little bit different. What's important is to understand is that things that are upregulating, like sugar would be a great example of something that's upregulating, can have a really negative impact on your body and thereby your cognitive ability. So it's important to understand that when we're talking about nutrition and we're talking about it from the perspective of the neurally diverse, diet is actually a way that we can manage some of our stuff. But again, it goes back to the same problem we have with everything else, which is people say, well, why do you do that? And then, like I say, most people have more to say about my diet than I have to say about theirs.
Why? What do they say about your diet?
Well, I'll go to a restaurant, right? And like, I'll look at the menu and I'll kind of look at everything and I'll be like, I'll close it and I'll be like, I would like steamed vegetables, a piece of meat, and maybe half of a potato or something, like whatever.
Yeah.
And someone at the table, almost always, if I'm in like mixed company, I'll be like, you're such a disciplined person. And as I always say, no, it's not that. It's that if I don't eat like this, I feel like crap.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how you will take care of yourself when you suddenly realize that when you don't feel well, it's actually because of choices that you've made. It's not some external force that's doing things to you. It's not the inevitable age. It's not all these things. It's that most of the time I had a choice, I made a choice, and I had to deal with first, second, and third order consequences of that choice. And it's not really a mystery.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Evaluating like some of those choices, it's even hard to see the resources that you have in front of you. So, yeah. And I think that because a lot of times, like when you're talking about eating like fresh vegetables, just vegetables in general, I recently put like on my story where people get vegetables.
I saw your whole Instagram thing about this.
My whole Instagram is all about vegetables right now, in case you want to talk about them. But one of the things people said or responded was that canned vegetables, and like there are some canned vegetables that like have additive stuff that's not good, but like other than that, like canned vegetables, they stay on the shelf, they last longer, they're cheaper, they're there, you can eat them. Like, and I think that because of our perception of like what healthy is, we forget about some of these other ways that we can get the nutrients that our body actually needs.
Yesterday, for like lunch, I literally had frozen broccoli. I microwaved in a bowl. I dumped a can of tuna that was like, it was tuna and olive oil. I dumped a can of that on hot broccoli. I covered the thing in sriracha and I ate it with a couple of corn chips. And again, there's no rules to food. I needed food. It's what I had available. I'm going with it. I don't care.
I would eat that. Well, maybe not the sriracha because I can't do hot stuff very well, but yeah, I'm a big fan of throwing things into a bowl and eating it.
Yeah, like, and actually, I always tell people a bowl is a perfect serving size. A bowl is a perfect serving size.
Do you think there's a difference between like people, like what do you think the difference is of people who eat their food all mashed up and all together, and then people who like very carefully like eat one section and then eat another section? Have you seen people like that?
Yeah, and I've been both of them. I think it's a matter of preference. Well, you got to remember, my background's in culinary arts. So, and I love food. Food and boxing were my first two loves, and they both broke my heart. And the reality is that different people, again, I think that comes down to sensory awareness. I think it's about how people process sensory information. Because a meal, like food is food, but a meal can be an event. And it's important to understand the difference. Like food feeds your body, but a meal can feed relationships. It can feed parts of your soul. Food is like literally, it's like one of the only things you actually have needed to do since the inception of the human race is you just have to do it every day. You do have to eat something. Like, you'll notice that things that go back further than civilization, for example, are things that they're multimodal.
Yeah.
They tend to transcend their primary function. So like food, sure. But eating as a group, sharing food is like the first step to hospitality. Like, and hospitality is about bringing people in, making them part of your home. Like it's a different thing. And then when we talk about nutrition, these are different concepts. And so, and I wish that feeding people well, not a lot, but well, was a higher form of hospitality. That's what I wish. So
yeah.
But
I hear you, because I understand the same. I get the same thing when I eat out with people who are not used to eating out with me. It's like to what you were talking about before, where it was like, oh, you're getting a salad? What? My favorite is when you get a salad that's like a packed salad with like tons of protein, and then the salad arrives and everyone's like,
and you're like,
good.
And again, like I love food as an experience. I love food from a cultural perspective. You know me, I eat weird and wild stuff. I'm very adventurous when it comes to food. But at the same time, I'm the type of person that I avoid a lot of what's in the aisles at a supermarket.
Yes, because most of that is highly processed, non-nutritious food.
Right.
Yeah. I remember I feel like it's like within the first 3 months or 6 months of knowing you, you were when we both worked at the Y. And you brought in like, it was lentil pancakes, I think. And you're like, do you want to try these lentil pancakes?
You're like,
I was like, they were pretty good actually. I tried them.
I still eat them to this day. They're one of the thing that I've done to really dress them up is I started doing 2 parts red lentil, 1 part primarily buckwheat. I really like them with buckwheat, but I also have started making them with corn, just a little bit of cornmeal. And for me, they're just a super stable, very nutritious, very easy. It's a food staple. Like, believe me, humans have been making flatbreads for like ever. There's nothing new about that. So, most food up until the recent century, it was like you had 12 ingredients available in your particularly local area. And those foods, along with a few other specialty items that come up seasonally, essentially make up all traditional food. Like, it's regionalistic, and that there's a reason for that. Industrial food production is only like 150 years old.
And all the processed food that we now fills the middle of the aisles and the middle of the grocery stores. How old's that? It's not even that old in the grand scheme of things.
No. So I have a wild cockamamie theory that somebody on the internet can fight me about it. But basically, most of what we eat as convenience foods today are food products that were made for the war, that were made for World War II. America supported calorically a lot of the world during that time period, and we did so by making stable food products to stop people from starving. So a lot of what we're eating as convenience food today is actually, you're just eating war rations and you don't know it. And again, if it's Mad Max times, man, I'm going to eat whatever I can get my hands on. But in a world where I can feed myself nutritionally, and that longevity is important and not daily survival, my eating capacity is going to be different.
Yeah, I think about how many markets are now available, at least in Detroit. They've really improved how many markets are around.
Yeah, I know.
And yeah, it's great. But also like where you can get fresh food, and like it's not always an option. It really isn't. However, like there might be some that are closer to you than you think. That's what I was trying to say. Is that
and when I lived in Midtown, Marcus Market, right, is like the market for that town. But like And they had a little corner for vegetables. But I mean, it was onions, it was apples, it was basic stuff. But this is why in those scenarios you rely on frozen things.
Frozen and canned.
You rely on frozen and canned, particularly in specific regions of Detroit, particularly if you cannot drive. So if you're in another area like that, like Louisiana or like Atlanta or like St. Louis or, these south or eastern side of Chicago, these kinds of areas where they are food deserts, you're not going to get what you need. You really can't beat getting a hold of bags of dried beans and lentils. You really can't beat buying the 1 pound tube of turkey or whatever at the store, and you really can't people have been I once read a great article that said, can you survive on beans and rice alone? And the answer is no, but most people in the world do. Yeah. And the reality is that we have, in a whole food capacity, a lot of options, and as Americans, we don't realize just how enabled we are to make better choices. Yeah. And how we need to make those better choices, because in other countries, they don't get to make those choices. It's made for them. They get better food. We get to make bad choices. They don't get to make bad choices.
Yeah. And also, just to say, that doesn't mean that you can't ever have the chips or the cake or whatever. That's not what we're saying, just to clarify. Over the course of the week, what you want to make sure you're doing is that you are balanced, you are figuring out what your routine is, and figuring out how you can get the most amount of nutrients in your diet.
One of my favorite rules is 3 to 6 cheat meals a week. Now understand that the portion size has to be right. You can't just be like, my cheat meal is a whole pig. And you can't decide that a cheat meal means you're going to go way overboard calorically. Yeah. If you want to go out and eat, I don't know, man, sometimes I do often say that there are foods out there where you're just feeding your inner child.
That's
you're just feeding your inner child. And actually, we've kind of come up with a lot of really interesting kind of fitnessy, better than bad options for feeding your inner child. They have freaking protein cereals now and all kinds of crazy stuff. Yeah, protein chips. You can kind of hit that spot without having to eat the whole bag of Doritos. You don't have to do that.
Also, for sweets, fruit is a great option.
Dates.
Yes, Ryan is obsessed with dates.
Dates are my candy.
Okay. Yes, dates are great. I don't know if I even like dates that much, except I did have dates recently, but
How dare you? How dare you? We have better access to dates than almost anywhere else in the United States. Do you know that?
Oh, I didn't know that.
We do.
I did not.
We do, and it's because of the population of people that live around us.
Really?
Yeah, it's we have access to some of the best Middle Eastern food in the nation.
That makes sense.
And along with that comes dates.
I did not make that correlation, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, but man, I got a buddy that moved out to California, and I'm like, how's the food? And he goes, honestly, once you get past the sushi and the burritos, there's not much out here. He's like, I can't find a shawarma to save my life. And I was like, dude, I don't want to move to a place that doesn't have a shawarma.
Yeah. Boston
when I was in Prague, I was walking down the street, and that same friend, I took a picture of the shawarma place that's right up by the train station by where I live, and he's like, you bastard. And I was like, ha ha.
Yeah. When I was in Boston, there was not readily available shawarmas or Middle Eastern food. And Middle Eastern food can give you so many nutrients. And
oh my God, it's so good for you. It's so good for you.
It's so good.
And I mean, yeah. Okay, anyway, the point is, nobody said you have to be miserable when it comes to eating well.
Yes. One of the rules I tell people, this is a rule I give people if they're really hung up on wanting sweets all the time. I'm like, you can have your sweet, but you have to get all of your vegetables for the day before you do so. And then,
that works.
Then you can have that. If that's what comes first, if you can at least train your body to eat the vegetables first and then have what you're craving afterwards, I'm okay with that.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. Let's see. Did we go through our agenda?
I went back and touched it a couple times.
So did I. I did. And we had a couple of it.
Poked it.
Okay. So what we do want to hear, bring it back. What we do want to hear from people is, in everything that we talked about, I feel like a lot of it kind of came back to how you can build it into your routine and make it part of your lifestyle. So in the comments, in the DMs, in the everything below this, respond and tell us what helps you keep nutritiously dense food in your diet. Nutritiously, is that a word?
It is now.
Okay. Yes. Yeah, any key takeaways you want to share, Ryan? That's what I would like from people.
I think one of the main things is if you want to make good decisions, do the thinking as prep work. Don't do it in the moment.
Yeah, that's a really good
Have
one.
a plan.
Yeah. Yeah, and make time for a plan. Make time just to sit down, think about it. Use your notes app in your phone, get a piece of paper, text somebody else if you need some accountability. Whatever you need to do to make a plan happen.
Yeah, and I actually sit down, like one of the things that I do with people is I have them program meals into MyFitnessPal before they eat them.
Yes.
So they can
yes.
play with the numbers and kind of learn how to move the Legos around to match what they need.
Yes.
I highly recommend doing that as a strategy thing.
I love that too because it kind of treats what you're eating as like a game, which makes it a little bit more attainable and more fun to figure out, especially I found for like neurodivergent people who feel like, okay, so how do I like maneuver this? I maneuver this. Oh, I want to eat out this day. So let's make sure I get what I need the day before. That kind of strategy really helps.
Yeah, I think, yeah. So what are we talking about next time?
Mental health.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
thank you for joining us.
Thank you.